Okay, hello everybody. Hello and welcome to Career Expert Roundtable. I am Bill, the company's expert, and with me as always is Abby from the Life Work Balance channel. How you doing,
Hello.
Abby?
I'm doing well. And I've had a couple of really interesting client conversations lately that I want to kind of get people's feedback from. So before we really jump into that, just a reminder, thank you for everyone who's watching the stream live or recorded when it does occur. If you have questions about your job search, about interviews, about your professional lives, whatever it might be, put them in the comments and Bill and I will do our best to get to all of the comments before we wrap up in about an hour and a half, which is our plan for the stream today. But
Absolutely.
I've had a couple of client sessions over the last couple of weeks where I've noticed a theme where people are not necessarily number one on the candidate consideration list, but they are number two or number three. And they're being somewhat strung along by these organizations that are not wanting to tell them that they're not number one, but are wanting to keep them on the back burner just in case number one doesn't work out. And so they are getting very little conversation or communication from employers about where they stand, but they're not being released, so to speak. They're not getting the rejection emails. They're getting vague responses from HR, from the hiring manager. And so I wanted to know how many people might be experiencing that in their job search currently in this time of year, and kind of talk about what the impact of that is and if you should do anything about it. So just with that little insight, Bill, what do you think about that?
Well, that's a great topic. First of all, if I just want to reiterate what Abby said, if you have applied to a bunch of places and you find that they're really not getting back to you either way, you're just sort of going into a void. I believe the expression you may have used earlier was stringing along, being strung along. First of all, I have a confession to make live on the air right here. This is happening. I've been guilty of that myself. And so I can understand the perspective of the recruiter. Maybe like you've shortlisted a few people and you're maybe talking to one person or a couple of people, like you bring in a group of people to interview, but you don't just want to like tell everybody else goodbye because you don't know if those people are going to work out or not. Maybe if you have several people, they're the best of the bunch, but it's really unclear whether they're going to work out or not, because there's no one that's like an absolute slam dunk so far. I can understand the temptation to not tell everybody else, okay, we're done, you can go home, and that it's over. That's all I can say. I don't know what might be going on out there, or if there's something happening that's driving this specifically, but I can understand that temptation. So if that's you, if you suspect that might be happening, I just think maybe the thing to do about it is not demand that recruiters change their behavior, because they're not going to. It would be more of like adjusting everybody's expectations. You shouldn't be waiting by the phone. You shouldn't be like hanging off like their every sort of communication to you if it's vague, and getting your hopes up and getting depressed about it. It's more kind of that side of things, like managing your psychology or whatever. I think that's more of the fix, if there is a fix for this.
I
I
would
don't know what
agree.
you think.
I think that when it comes to the job search process, you want to be wanted, similar to dating, right? Like that's what this is always reminds me of, is you want to find someone or an organization that wants you just as much as you want them. And
Absolutely.
that doesn't happen all the time. And so you can have a really positive working relationship with your organization and feel really valued and like you are providing value without that like perfect match feeling. And
Yeah.
so I think it would actually be my preference and to see the trends move this way where recruiters are a little bit more honest about where people fall in the process, and for the candidates to not take it as personally. We would love to be number one, and we're not going to be number one for every single job. So it would be nice to know you're number two or you're number three. We're working through the process with this. And if it doesn't work out with them, we want you. And to not feel bad about yourself because it's not necessarily an indication about your personal value or anything like that. Because it would be great if instead of my job search taking 6 months, that knowing that I might be second on the list or third on the list, that my job search might take a little bit longer than normal, but if something falls through with person number one, that I would be next up to call. And I'm not going to have hard feelings about that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we like. That's the thing. It's like everybody's expectations don't match the situation. I mean, what do you do about that? You know, we can demand that the situation change. We can expect that people change their expectations. You know what I mean? Like, there's no real slam dunk solution for this.
Right.
I don't know why I'm suddenly defending the recruiters here. You know, when people are leveling complaints against them, but I understand. It's like, you know, what's the incentive for you to limit your options artificially? You know, when you haven't even selected like a candidate, or you haven't even got close to selecting a candidate,
Right.
just by telling everyone, okay, I'm sorry you didn't get it, better luck next time, so they leave. You know, you want to keep your options open, because until somebody actually starts in the role, you know, and even after someone starts in the role, you never know if you're going to need to come back and look at other candidates. So, you know what I mean?
Maybe another position opens up. You know, I'm talking with someone right now about their process, their hiring process. It's been, you know, a year that they've been looking for a job. They are self-employed, so they're able to keep themselves financially afloat, but they're wanting to find something a little bit more reliable and stable for their own well-being. And so they've been looking for jobs, not full-time, but for over a year. And it's just, it feels defeating when they're like applying to jobs. They're hearing back that they're still in the consideration process, but it's in months. And so, you know, things could work out for this person. It just might take a little bit longer, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's tough to be the person that's waiting in suspense. That's always the case. Okay, I want to get to questions. First of all, hi to Bobby Reynolds. And I just want to remind everyone, this is an interactive live stream. So if you are watching this on my channel or on Abby's channel, you should be able to get into the chat box and post questions. And if you do, we can see it from wherever you might be watching this from. If you are from my channel, check out Abby's channel. And we talk about similar things on our channel, but we come from we have different perspectives on things. So that's what makes it interesting. Also, let's get rolling with questions here. So McKinley3 says, I did a terrible job in my last interview. She was wanting an excitement answer when she asked me, why should I hire you? Like, why you? You just say, because I'm me, you know, I'm perfect.
I am the unicorn you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. All your hopes and dreams will come true. It's like Napoleon Dynamite. I don't know if anybody remembers that movie, but you know, just your wildest dreams and all your hopes will all. Yeah, I wish I'm too fat to do that, but yeah, that's the idea. Now, to get to this question, I'm sure Abby has her own sort of version of how to answer this question. I've got mine. I would say, in a nutshell, the biggest thing about this question, why should I hire you, is the way people mean it. Is the emphasis is not on the word hire. Why should I hire you? It's like, well, because I need a job. That's not what they're asking. They're saying, why should I hire you specifically? Like you said here in your question, why you? Now, the answer to that, I think, in my perspective, is the default thing you would say is, well, as I understand it, you're looking for someone who has, and then you go down the requirements, like, you know, someone who can do this, someone who has this education, has got this experience. That's me, you know, so why would you hire me? Well, it seems like I'm a perfect fit for this. You know, that would be the default answer. I'm sure there's other things you could say there too, but that would be, if you don't know, if it takes you aback, that would be kind of the default answer as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And when you're preparing for an interview, you want to consider why they should hire you. So you should have something generally on your mind if this type of question would come up. I've found that this question has started to decrease in frequency in interviews. It's not coming up as often because it's the whole interview is a pitch. But to go back to your very first statement about this on your comment, McKinley3, I did a terrible job in my last interview. I actually would recommend taking a step back and probably not being as harsh on yourself. I bet you did well enough in your interview they're just other people who may have been able to demonstrate that they were better fits. If it was a complete flop, then and it was really terrible, then it would have like ended early and they would have said this isn't going to work out, things like that. So not every interview is going to be an A+ star interview. And it still also doesn't mean that you've put the final nail in the coffin and you're never going to recover from it. So keep that in mind. Don't be too hard on yourself. Interviews take practice. You need to do preparation and have experiences like this where you're like, man, I need to be ready to answer this type of question. So your interviewer was wanting some more enthusiasm and excitement with your response for the question, why should I hire you? Why are you the person who's going to be the best fit for this role? And so you want to be able to communicate both verbally and non-verbally your enthusiasm for the position and for the role, even the fit for the organization, and do exactly what Bill had mentioned, which is connect the dots for the interviewer. What sorts of things are they looking for in a person to fill this role? And how do you have those characteristics and qualities and skills to be very successful, both from a competency standpoint and also from a cultural standpoint? How are you going to fit in with the team and the organization and things like that? So it is a pitch about how you are the best fit for this role, but you need to be able to verbalize it and connect the dots for the interviewer.
Absolutely. Like McKinley, this is actually a very good question to be asked. It doesn't feel like it, but this is the kind of question you want, because what they're essentially doing is they're giving you the floor. They're saying like, here, make a case for yourself, And when you think about it, why are you at the job interview? Well, the whole point of you being there is like, what's the message you want to send to them? It's that, oh, you should hire me. You should forget about all those other doofuses you're talking about, and you're talking to, and you should hire me, right? I'm the best one. That's what you're there to say. So they're basically saying, okay, what, you want to communicate that? Well, now's your chance. Go.
A silver platter. Yep.
Yeah. Why should we hire you? Like, what is it about you? What can you bring? Why should we pick you instead of one of the other candidates? And if you don't know anything, like I think, Abby, you were kind of coming at this from more the personalized kind of, what can I as a person, as an individual, bring to this? I think my approach was a bit more mechanical, but somewhere in there, you're basically want to like convey in a nutshell what you're at the interview to say, right? This is why you should hire me. I got this. I'm this type of person. I can bring this. I kick ass. I kick more ass than any other candidate, any other person in this company has ever kicked before. That's me, right? So, that hopefully gives you a sort of starting point to figure out what you're going to say if they ever ask you this again. And Abby, you're saying that they don't ask this as much anymore. I'm actually surprised by that. I'm wondering if maybe they're asking it in a different form. Like they're saying, what are your strengths, or, what can you bring to the role, or, something like that,
Yes. Yeah. And, it all kind of, the point of an interview is to really identify who's going to be the best fit for the role from two perspectives. One, the ability to actually do the job. And then two, the ability to fit in with the rest of the people in the organization. I might be the most skilled in a certain field and have the worst people and communication skills ever. And they're going to figure that out during the interview. And so while I might be the most qualified on paper, I also have to communicate the people aspect, how I'm going to fit in with the team, with the customers or clients that we're serving, my supervisor, all of those things.
Yeah. And that's not on paper. Like that's what
Right.
we're assessing you on right there. Yeah.
And if it is on paper, it's also not 100% believable. So you have to be able to communicate it during.
I am the best person who ever lived.
Yeah.
You can take that from me. Yeah.
My personal opinion is that I am the best. So
you can take that to the bank.
Yeah. And so the point of the interview as a whole is to try to suss out those different pieces. We think you have the qualifications. Can you like talk the talk and walk the walk from the day-to-day requirements of doing the job? And can you fit in with our team and our department and things like that? And so the question, why should we hire you or why should we pick you, is the most straightforward way of trying to get you, the candidate, to pitch to me those two things. Do you have the skills to do the job? And how will you fit into our organization, our culture? Will our customers and clients like you and want to work with you? Things like that, which is why I like to blend both that more psychological aspect with the technical aspect that Bill was describing earlier. And I'm going to
Yeah,
put in the chat.
the psychological aspect is interesting. It's like, I mean, just they ask you this, you say, just look at me, look at me. I'm one of the gang. It's like when you deal with me, you will enjoy it. You will look forward to that part of your day when you've got to deal with me. I will bring a smile to your face, and I will bring some pep in your step when you come to work every day because I'm there. That kind of thing.
Sunshine you've been looking for.
Yeah, I mean, like I know we're kind of being facetious, but it's like you really do want to communicate this type of thing. I think this would have an impact on a lot of recruiters that I've known. Anyway, I mean that they're like tuned into this kind of thing, and they're assessing you as a person.
Yep. So I just put in the chat, and this is, I believe, going to come through for my channel. So if you're watching on my channel, and then if you're watching on my Twitch channel as well, because I'm streaming this to Twitch, I link to my video on how to answer the "why should we hire you" question. And so if you're watching from Bill's channel, you might not see it in the chat, but I have a video specifically on how to answer this question if you are interested.
Yeah, go check it out. Okay, we got another one here. This is an interesting one. Should I ask my brother-in-law for a ride to a job? Well, that depends on your brother-in-law and what you guys think of each other.
Yes.
Some brother-in-laws, you might not want to be in a car alone with them. You might not want to keep your hand on your wallet at all times, and you don't want to turn your back on them. So it really depends on what we're talking about here. But
Yes.
I am confident that you'll figure it out, Mike.
Yes. Well, and Mike is commenting from Twitch, which is awesome. Thank you, Twitch viewers, for watching and commenting.
So are you playing a first-person shooter while you're listening to this? Is that the idea?
Apparently.
You're like blowing zombies away with a shotgun or something?
They've got multiple Twitch feeds going. So, yeah, should you ask your brother-in-law for a ride to a job? I mean, if you can't get yourself there, then yes, try to figure out how you can get yourself to your job, and your brother-in-law might be the first best option. If your brother-in-law is unreliable, if they have, like, as a person unreliable, or they have unreliable transportation, then you may want to look into other options. But there should be no problem. If you feel like you have a good relationship with them, you would enjoy the ride with them, and they would be willing to help you to ask them for a ride to a job.
Yeah, slip him $5. And if he doesn't show up on time, you could say, well, there goes your $5.
You could have had this.
Exactly. Just wave it in their face like that. That always goes over well. Greetings. Amazed is back. Amazed has been here before. Amazed says, greetings. Great discussion starter today. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we have this. Matthew says, over 3 weeks, I interviewed in person with a company for a second time. Okay, it went well, and they sent over benefits info the same day. Haven't heard from them since, even after following up. I've moved on. I would say that's the right thing to do.
Yeah. And that really aligns perfectly with what we were discussing earlier when it comes to the organization's timelines. And if you are number 1 on their list versus number 3 on their list, or even number 2, that the interview may have gone really well for you and for another person. And maybe that other person is number 1 and they're working through the process with them. I do find it interesting that you got all this information for them. You had a second interview with them. You followed up and then you heard nothing. That is disheartening. And I think moving on is the best option without completely writing them off. Ideally, they would have gotten back to you. Ideally, they would have responded to your follow-up. Ideally, they would have given you some additional information. And if you say, they're on my list, I'm not going to consider them anymore, and then they come back and offer you a position, what are you going to do? You don't necessarily need to completely write them off, but at the same time, don't hang on and wait for them to come back to you.
Yeah, I mean, what are your alternatives here? It's like the only other thing I would say, other than what you've already done, would be if you followed up, did you follow up with perhaps everybody that was involved. Like if you went down to the interview and there was more than one person, there was the recruiter and maybe a hiring manager, did you follow up with both those individuals? If you haven't done so, I would say, it might be reasonable to follow up with the hiring manager. I mean, that was 3 weeks ago, so I'm not sure if it really makes sense at this point. But going forward, that's the only other thing I think you could have done. I mean, beyond that, what would you do? Just go to pieces, over like worrying about this? No, move on. These people are obviously doing something, and if they want to contact you, they know where to find you. In the meantime, you got stuff to do. You're looking, and there's other people that would want to hire you too. So absolutely, I would say you're handling this the right way, Matthew.
Yep. And my one thing that I think comes up with people who are in the job application process is when they get hope for a job that could work out for them, then they stop their application process and their interview process.
Yeah.
You do not want to stop until you have an offer in hand and a start date ready to go. Anything can happen during this process, like anything. So you can't even predict what could happen. So you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success by not stopping the application and the interview process for yourself, even if you got some things in the works that seem like they're going to come through. An offer even doesn't mean that that is the final stage of this whole thing. They might be able to withdraw or rescind the offer the day you start. There are so many things that could happen. So set yourself up for success, continue applying, continue interviewing. Ideally, you get the offer that works out where you started the new job and everything is fine and you can just let the other things in process go, but don't stop until you are solid.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I understand how it's easier said than done because job search sucks. And, the moment there's like a hope, like a lifeline, okay, there's a way out of this process. I don't have to keep doing this. It's understandable. People like you pin your hopes on that and then you dial back your job search because you want to. This is like an excuse to do it. So I understand the temptation to do it. And I'm not blaming anybody, but at the same time, I agree with Abby, you really should resist that temptation and keep moving forward because if you do that and then this thing doesn't work out, you've just lost like however amount, 3 weeks, whatever amount of time it was where you could have been searching and following up on opportunities.
Yep. And just last stream that we had, 2 weeks ago, we talked about this exact same thing where the timing of the year even slows down for applications right now. So organizations are wanting to hire to start at the very beginning of the calendar year for a lot of jobs. But applicants tend to think that this time of year slows down because of the holidays with people being out of town, out of the office, not wanting to hire, things like that. So you can actually boost your chances of getting hired during this phase of the year just because other applicants are having the same thought process that, oh, it's slowing down. I'm going to slow down as well. Don't do it. Don't give in to that temptation. Keep grinding on those applications, getting those interviews ideally. Don't give up. The more that you engage in this process, the better.
Yes, I agree too. That's the thing about this time of year. Bobby says job interview with a job coach nearby. Okay.
Great.
I'm not sure. That's more of a statement than a question, but best of luck to you. McKinley says, thank you both so much. I'm getting denied for jobs that I have years of experience. I think it's my pitching. I'm having too many interviews. Just remember, McKinley, that whether you get the interview or not is not really based on whether you're qualified, because the reality for a lot of things is that there's many people who are qualified. Now I'm not diminishing you in any way, but I'm just saying that's not the be all end all. A common complaint that I get, and I'm sure Abby gets, is, people say, well, I don't understand. I was qualified for this job and they didn't call me back. And it's like, because there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of people putting in for these things. And I know from being on the other side of the table, sometimes you would love to hire everybody. You would, if you had 10 jobs, you'd hire 10 people, but you don't. You have one job to fill. And as a result, there are quite a few qualified people that they look like they could do it. They look like the perfect candidate, but there are several people that look like that. It's just what, random chance, luck, whatever you want to call it, karma. I mean, I don't know, how you rationalize it, but that really seems to be the luck of the draw for these things. So keep going. The more opportunities, you put yourself for,
Yep.
the better it's going to work out.
And with your comment, McKinley, I'm going to pitch my services really quick. I do interview strategy sessions with people and also mock interviews. And so it can be really helpful to have an outsider's perspective on how you communicate about yourself and your skills during an interview. And so that's one of the things that I do both during my interview strategy sessions and my mock interviews. If you are not interested in working with someone like me, but you still would like some assistance and help with that, if you're in the United States, every county, at least that's what we call them here in Colorado, which is where I'm based, has access to a workforce center where they have career experts and workforce specialists who would be willing to meet with you about your application package, so your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, things like that, and then would also engage with you when it comes to interviewing. Do mock interviews, give you some feedback on your responses to things like that. But it might be helpful to have someone who's like an outsider who doesn't know anything about you give you some feedback on your interview style, because that could be it. If you're getting lots of interviews, but you're not moving through them, then it might have to do with the quality of your responses, how quick or how long it takes you to get through your responses. If your stories make sense or if they're kind of convoluted. Maybe it's even your nonverbal body language that is indicating that you're not enthusiastic or excited about the position, so they're moving on from you. So there's all these things that could be going on. So getting someone else's perspective, especially someone who doesn't know you and isn't worried about hurting your feelings because they're friends with you or they're family members, they will be able to provide you with hopefully some more objective insight into what might be going on.
Absolutely. There's a common question that I get, or a common comment that I get on my YouTube channel from a lot of job seekers, and that is to do with feedback, getting feedback. The complaint is that, they'll go for an interview and they'll be told, and, maybe you can relate to this, you've been told, oh, I'm sorry, you didn't get it. But then either they don't tell you why, or they tell you why, but it doesn't really add up. You suspect that's not the real reason, right? So what I would say about that is, number one, I'm going to go far and I'm going to say, you will never be told the real reason why. That's my thing I'm putting out there. That's my theory, because for a variety of different reasons, either they feel very sensitive about admitting the real reason. It's like, well, we just didn't like you, or something like that. It's very hard to defend. Another thing is, my understanding is, and you can, I don't know if you know about this, Abby, you could maybe enlighten me, but my understanding was that there were issues where companies were sued by candidates who were turned down for jobs. And the recruiter said, well, you weren't hired because of this. And then the candidates sued the company.
Yeah.
So in order to protect against that, some HR organizations issue policies saying you are not to say a reason, under any circumstances, whatever the reason is, you're not allowed to give a reason.
Yep.
You
And that is accurate. There are a lot of lawsuits that have occurred because the candidates then believe they've been discriminated against by the organization. And sometimes the interviewers might not even know why. Like, they can't even verbalize why they're preferring one candidate over another, because they're both equitably qualified. They seem like they could both be good fits, and they're just going with their gut feeling. And that is not like, you can't quantify that. You can't say, well,
and you can't defend it either. That's the thing,
Yeah.
Like, how do you prove that you're not biased in some way? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I can understand why they're wanting to shy away from that. So what I tell people on my channel is that, when they do give you a reason, I'd be very skeptical that that's in fact the true, real reason that they applied, so anyway, where this leads is the fact that, like, if you suspect that you might be doing something wrong in an interview, maybe, like, is there something I'm doing that's off-putting, or I'm not communicating something I should, and you want help with that, the way to find that out is to work with a career coach. Now, I'm not a career coach. I don't provide those services. Okay. I do so many other things. I just don't have time to do any of that. That's not what I do. But Abby does that. So if you're looking for a career coach, maybe go check out her stuff because she's a career coach. I mean, you can speak for yourself, Abby. You were a recruiter, and so you know that stuff. That's what you do. So that's how you get feedback. If you're wondering, how am I doing? Am I doing something of which I'm not aware that's holding me back? How do I detect that and get help for it?
Yeah.
This is the fix for it. That's how you
Yep.
find out.
Yep. And there are a lot of different resources out there to help with that, ranging from paying for a career coach or interview coach like me, all the way to free resources that your community likely offers. Like I was mentioning, the Workforce Center. I know that even my library system is trying to coordinate resources with local career coaches to provide, like my library would pay me, for example, to come and do a session for community members who don't have the finances to pay for their own coach. So there's lots of things out there. See what is available in your community, and then YouTube like this, and Twitch. I've got Twitch viewers on here too, but it's a great resource. Lots of free, meaningful, helpful, valuable content. And if you just want to take that step further and work with someone directly, then find them.
I mean, you could use friends and family for this too. Like that's sort of the poor person's version of this, and I mean, there is some value in that. Certainly if you're working on doing lots of mock interviews, which I recommend, certainly if you have like friends or family, people around, that can really help. They pretend to be the interviewer. You do a pretend job interview with them.
Yep.
And if it feels awkward and strange, that's good because that's like simulating what a real job interview feels like. And so if it kind of flusters you a little bit, that's good because you see how you perform under those conditions. And that's what you have to prepare for. Right. But the other thing I just want to say to everyone, I mean, once again, I don't really have a vested interest here, but if you're hiring a career coach, you don't have to pay for huge number of sessions. You can do correct me if I'm wrong, Abby, you can do like one session and that provides a lot of value. So just, one quick thing and just to get some feedback,
Yep. And I usually do one session with people. I have lots of clients who want to schedule multiple sessions with me, but it's very common for me to just have a single interview strategy session with someone and not even get into the mock interview process before they start seeing some different results than what they were achieving before. And a lot of it just has to do with talking with someone else who doesn't know much about you, who can put on the interviewer hat and try to think like the hiring team to help you pitch yourself in a different way, to help you tell your stories in a different way, to help you focus your preparation just a little bit differently, which then boosts confidence, changes your style so that you can be more effective with the actual interview outcomes. And yeah, one session is usually all it takes.
And not to go on about this stuff forever or anything, but I know in other areas, like it helps to have somebody in your court.
Yep.
Like hiring an accountant, hiring a lawyer. It's like it's really awesome when you've got an expert come in and they're on your team and they're like, relax, we got this. Here's how it works. Here's what you do. Don't worry. That really helps also on a sort of a psychological level too. So there's a bit of that too that's kind of mixed in with this. Okay, Petit, I thought it said petite, but it doesn't. Any tips for people who test anxiety when interviewing? I study and feel confident when entering, but fumble when answering questions. Do you want to take this, Abby?
Yeah. So when it comes to the test anxiety, essentially, like performance anxiety is actually what I might call it. There's a couple of things that could be going on. The first is that while you have prepared, you may have not prepared in the most effective way to keep things simple and easy to access for your brain. So one of the things that has come up a lot recently with clients that I've worked with is you have an infinite number of interview questions that could be asked in an interview that also have an infinite number of responses. So how do you prepare for those infinite number of questions and infinite number of responses? You can't. So one of the things that I recommend doing is simplifying it. Figure out what the 10 core competencies critical for success are in the role that you're interviewing for, and then identify 1 to 3 stories or experiences per each competency. So that's 10 to 30 stories and experiences that you have prepared before your interview. That way, during the interview, you can go into your mental toolbox and only see those 10 to 30 options to answer any potential interview question. That makes it much easier than having this like infinite number. I've got to think on my feet and like quickly come up with a relevant response. So that's one thing that you can do. The other thing is I've got several videos. I've got a whole playlist actually on how to kind of overcome your nerves during an interview. And I've talked about this a couple of times on some of our previous streams, but there are some physiological things that you can do with your body to help center and focus yourself during an interview. One of the things that you can do before an interview is like a power pose, which is basically you stand like a superhero for 30 seconds, and that boosts your confidence and get some endorphins flowing to help you feel better and more confident going into the interview. And then one of the things you can do during the interview is there's a pressure point in your hand that's in either hand, just in this meaty portion between your thumb and your forefinger, that you can secretly pinch during the interview process. I'm doing it right now and no one knows because you can't see my hands on our video. And if you're in person, your hands would be in your lap, likely under the table, and no one would know that you're doing it then. And so that's an easy way to kind of recenter and refocus yourself. Many times when someone is fumbling when answering a question, it's because they're trying to answer quickly and they're not actually hearing the whole question. So maybe have a cup of water with you during your interview and take a sip before you respond so you have time to mentally process what questions they have asked you. Maybe you have a notebook in front of you and you're jotting down different pieces of the question or things that are coming to mind for you that you want to touch on during your response so you can refer back to it and answer their question in whole during the process. So there are a lot of ways that you can keep yourself focused and away from fumbling during the answer portion of an interview. And again, it takes some practice and some intentionality with getting yourself there mentally. But when I hear that you are studying and you're preparing and you feel confident when you get there and then suddenly you black out and you lose everything during the actual interview, that tells me that the kind of short-term preparation, maybe cramming before the interview, is actually working against you than working with you.
Absolutely. If like rehearsal is the key to this stuff. Mm-hmm. If you train, like anything else in life, if you rehearse, you train, you do drills, right? Almost like a what do you call it? like a fire drill? You be in school, all the little kids, you do the fire drill, and that's because when there's an actual fire, everybody's panicking and running around. It's surreal, So if you've done the drill to the point where it's automatic, it's like I line up here and then I go out that door and, then I meet here. It's like, it just kicks in, right? So you don't just do 1 or 2 pretend interviews, you do several. And if you are working with a career coach, if you're working with, you have like a friend or family member, imagine if you did like 3 to 4 pretend interviews per day, for say 2 weeks, like 10 days in a row, Monday to Friday, 2 weeks in a row. That's like 30 to 40 interviews. And, you see a pattern, you get asked very similar questions. Like Abby said, you could be asked an infinite number of questions with infinite responses. You do it backwards. You say like, what am I there to communicate? I'm there to communicate. I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, and I've got that, So when you get asked a question that you're not really 100% sure what to say, you fall back on saying, well, the fact that I have this usually solves that problem for me or something. You know what you're talking about. And then you rehearse like 30 or 40 times just in 2 weeks, 3 or 4 of these a day. The training kicks in when you go to a real interview because you've been over this stuff like so many times that it's built in, you've memorized it, it's burnt in. So you go into your training essentially. That's how you overcome a lot of the anxiety and a lot of the nervousness and things like this. So I didn't know about the standing like a superhero thing. It doesn't work. I have to get a cape if I'm going to do something like that at home.
play
Maybe
the
not
Marvel
tights,
music
but
in
the
the
cape.
background. Yeah, yeah.
You would put a fan on the floor in front of you and just blowing up. There you go. That's interesting. I've never heard that tip before.
Yep, it's called the power pose, and it's just supposed
You
to
do
like
this.
mentally, trick your brain or your mind into thinking that you are confident. It's like almost like verbal affirmations.
You play tricks on your brain. That's how you win.
You trick yourself.
Uh, okay, Bobby says, what if you hire a janitor guy that is acting Nick Cage janitor? Okay, so this is like really high level 9 kind of thing. Nick Cage janitor from Willy's Wonderland to be cleaning your place like a mission while other janitors are taking their time cleaning and talking. Well, you got to take matters into your own hands. Go in with your fists. Just have a showdown with Nicolas Cage. That's what that's what I'd love to do. You drink a keg and you go have a showdown under these circumstances. That's what I want to do. I think we need to discuss this at length.
Yes, I'm glad you understood what was going on with that question.
I don't need to. Me and Bobby, we're like this, so I'm just on the level. Love in Chaos says, thanks for the reality check regarding continue searching. Recently accepted an offer and my hours were reduced right after training. My eyes are still peeled for new opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it seems like they pulled a fast one on you there. At least that's what it seems like.
And really, what you said, my eyes are still peeled for new opportunities, even though I just got hired into this new role, is something that everyone should continue to do. It is easy to say, oh, I'm in my new role. I'm not going to continue a job search anymore. I'm going to stay in this job for years and feel comfortable and confident and loyal to the organization. But in reality, anything could happen. Anything, your hours could be reduced. You could have a change in life circumstances. You could get a new boss who you have a terrible relationship with. And the more engaged you are with the job search process continuously, regardless of your employment status or not, the better for your professional career long term.
Yeah, it's very tempting. It's very tempting. Like, when you get in your new job, I mean, why would you keep searching for jobs? You hate job search. Everybody hates job search. It's not something you do for fun, right? It's like a video I did recently. It's a hobby for psychopaths. Why would you do this?
Right.
But it's actually better for you if you keep, like you say, you keep your eyes peeled for new opportunities. Always be looking for new opportunities. And, that really pays off.
Yep.
Amazed is here. I'm going to change. I used to invoke these things, these kind of fancy new views here. Says, how can I explain on an application that I'm pursuing a new role after less than a year because the position is not the best fit and my skills are underutilized?
Well, I would say you don't need to offer up this information freely. If you are on an online application, and it is asking you, and it's like got the asterisks indicating that's a required question to answer why you are leaving that position, I think it's perfectly fine to just say not the best fit or pursuing other, more professionally aligned roles, something like that. But I wouldn't offer this information up willingly unless it's a required question.
Yeah, I agree. Like, this is not the type of thing you want to mention in a job interview or any part of the hiring process because it hurts you.
Yep.
The more you talk about how something didn't work out and why it didn't work out and the fact that it didn't work out, that takes away that lowers your chances right there.
Yep.
The people that tend to be selected are the ones that are not planting the negative stuff in the recruiting find. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the thing. The magic line for me was that it's nice if you can just get away with this and only this, is to just say I was ready to do more. Like, why did you leave? Oh, I was ready to do more.
Yeah.
And just leave it at that and don't elaborate.
I love
you don't
that.
want to go into negativity.
Yep.
Read the show says, finished a seasonal job and feels like I'm back at square one. I hope to find something soon, but the grind is painfully real. You're absolutely right, the Red Show. And you're not alone in that. There's a lot of people experiencing this. That's how it goes,
Yep.
Go ahead.
Well, and seasonal work is what makes it tough because it's usually just short-term employment. And there's always going to be seasonal work available, but you're going to have to consistently be transitioning to match that seasonal work. So when you have seasonal jobs, continue the job application process to try to find something that's a little bit more permanent and stable. Now, I recognize this person. So I'm sorry to hear that you're like back to the, feeling like you're at square one and you're feeling like the grind is painfully real and you're just, not able to find something a little bit more permanent and stable. One of the things that I think people are kind of hesitant to look into is even temporary positions, because those temporary positions actually can sometimes turn into permanent positions. So if you have the ability to work with a temp agency or a job placement agency, you might engage in some temporary employment and some temporary work that is truly temporary. But the chances of you building relationships and demonstrating your expertise and your reliability and all of these things about how you can fit in with an organization are relatively high. So the chances of it turning into a more permanent position after a somewhat test period of temporary employment is there. So if you're struggling with jobs, if you're struggling with the job search, if you feel like you haven't tried the temp agency route, consider it. There are some good temp agencies out there, and I've actually worked to employ some people from temp agencies when I'm kind of contracted to help hire with organizations, and it's that exact reason. They don't necessarily have the resources to have a full HR staff on staff. They don't have the resources to have full-time recruiters, but if they can hire someone to, contact the temp agency, do the interview process with some temp employees, hire them on in a temporary capacity, almost, I would say 90% of those temp employees have actually become permanent employees with the organizations that I've helped hire.
Yeah, and I've been with organizations that was their hiring policy too. It wasn't their entire hiring policy, but they would hire quite a few temporary people. And what it was just a way to basically have them on probation,
Yep.
and
Test them out.
Yeah, exactly. And if it didn't work out, it's like, okay, well, your contract's coming to an end. It's no big deal. If they're really good, it's like you offer them a full-time position. By that point, you know who they are and you've had a good sampling of what they're like. And, so it's almost like an extension of the hiring process. I mean, in addition to doing temp agencies, which you should do, is also, if the job obviously says like it's a temporary position, just don't shy away from it.
Right.
I don't, you're maybe probably not doing that already, but just in case you are, don't be dissuaded by that.
Yeah, don't limit yourself. In fact, in my last organization, I was a permanent employee and we hired a temporary employee to kind of do a similar job to what I was doing. And then I transitioned out of my permanent role and they were able to fill it. They had to go through the application process for a competitive process, but they were the person that we knew. We knew they did the job. We knew they did the job well. We knew they understood it. They were a counterpart to me. And so it was like a shoo-in for them to be the person considered for the process. So don't limit yourself from temporary roles, contract work, things like that, because while it might not be permanent and it might not be, on the face super stable, it really can lead to something that's more permanent and stable employment down the line.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said earlier, you're not alone, Red. There's a lot of people in this. I mean, when I think of temporary work, I'm thinking of, like, at least where I am in the world, snow shoveling in the winter. That's where I am. That's really popular. And then that turns into grass cutting in the summer. So like you're doing landscaping and all that, and then doing snow clearing. So between the two of those, that keeps you pretty much employed the entire year round. So I know a lot of people do that. Here's another one from Red. I also feel temp agencies are also looking for more experience. I was with one and actually look to going back, but I feel like pursuing another one since I didn't really feel like a good fit, to be honest. I have to think of my internet acronyms there.
Well, and I think that you can be on multiple temp agencies list at the same time. So I have, coming to mind for me are like 3 or 4 different temp agencies that I've worked with. And if I were going to go that route, I would go and apply to be on their like employment list for all 4 of those agencies, just because anything could work out. And maybe I get a part-time job with one and a part-time job with another, and then that leads to my full-time work. And there's some, finagling I have to do with my schedule, but I eventually figure it out. So, maybe you can go back to the one that you were with and maybe work with someone different, or who is, like the people who work for the temp agencies are kind of like recruiters to help place you in different organizations and in different types of jobs. So maybe you work with someone different in the one that you've already have experience with, and then also get in with additional and new organizations just to diversify a little bit.
Yeah, and then for me, the elephant in the room is also the hidden job market. Go reach out to organizations directly. The ones that haven't posted a job, but they're near you and they employ people like yourself. So you reach out to the organization, learn how that works. If you want to do that with me, I have courses that talk all about that. I've got a course called my Get Hired course. There's a link to it in the description box. If you're watching this on my channel, if you're watching this on Abby's channel, then you have to come over to my channel to get that link. But
and Bill's channel link is in my description box, so click it.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Channel quickly.
So check that out. So if you're interested in that, that can kind of be a guide. If you're looking for something more for free, just over 2 months ago, I did a video called How I Would Get a Job if I had to go get a job now. And it's like 45 minutes long, and I cover 11 different ways of getting hired. So check that out. That might give you some ideas of some of the other things you can do in addition to the temp agencies, in addition to the job listings, and including the ones that are temporary. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different methods there. The problem is they're not easy to explain in like 5 minutes. Like there's a lot of principles at play. That's what makes it a bit involved. But if you read up on them and you study up on them and you try some stuff, there's a lot of things that you can access. So don't be shy to step into that world also as a component of your job search campaign. Doing more than one thing in a job search campaign is always good. I recommend doing 2 or 3 things. So scanning job listings is one, maybe reaching out to organizations might be another, and then looking at maybe temp agencies or like, subscribing on Twitter X to, HR companies in your hometown when they post their jobs, listings that they're working on, you see all of those. So if something comes along, like, there's many different things you can do. So check out that video, check out some of these resources. And that may open up other things that avenues you can go down.
Yep. And we, are all in a community somewhere. And so even just like looking at the different organizations that are like in your immediate 5-mile radius of where you live, what sorts of types of work do those organizations have? Maybe in your neighborhood, talking about seasonal work, maybe you see that your neighborhood employs a specific landscaping company and you can contact them directly to see if you might be able to assist with their seasonal openings. So it's really just being observant of what's around you and then figuring out how you can make a connection with one of those organizations or a person who does something similar to what you would want to do. Don't limit yourself just by applying to jobs online.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, for example, I'm not set up here to share my screen to show you guys, but something that everybody can do right now, if you want, if you're listening to this on a computer or a device, is you can go to Google and type in the name of your hometown or where you're currently living, where you are, or your region. If you're not in a city or something, you're just your region. And so you're looking at a map of your hometown or your region. And then there's a search box at the top. In the search box, you can type in your vocation, your profession, or your industry. So, for example, if I was a plumber, I would type in plumbing, plumber, construction, like this. And what you'll see is you'll see all the organizations that are around you that are in, say, the plumbing industry. They'll all light up, and here's where they are, here's what they're called, here's their website, here's how you contact them. So these are targets for you to check out. Now, the most basic thing you can do from there is go to their website, see if they have any jobs posted. If they don't have any jobs posted, you can still reach out to them. And I mean, it gets more complicated. You can then use LinkedIn to see inside of those organizations, to the decision makers, the owners, the hiring managers, and you can reach out to them and say something to the effect of like, hello, my name is Red, and I'm a fully qualified plumber, and I live nearby. And if you're looking for a fully qualified plumber who's great at this to join your team, please let me know, because I know you guys do work and I live close by. That's all. Have a great day. Something like that. And most people, it's going to fall on deaf ears. They're not hiring right now, but a lot of people are actually hiring, even though they haven't posted any jobs on their website or publicly. And you just slip right in, right when they're looking for a plumber. You fall right in their lap and they go, hey, maybe I'll check out this person. And if they work out, I just streamlined this whole process for me and saved myself a bunch of work. So there's a lot of things you can do like that. Tools that you have access to right now. Check it out, learn about some of the stuff, and you will benefit. You will benefit for your entire career knowing some of this stuff.
Yep. And networking is not just something you do when you're job searching. So even though you might have a stable employment right now, still engaging in some of those techniques that Bill just described of, reaching out to organizations, say, hello, I do this sort of thing. If you're ever interested in working with me, let me know. Then they just widens your opportunities and makes it so that if you do get to a point where you are going to lose employment or you're looking for new employment, you might already have some connections in place that you can easily fall back on before things get to a place of unemployment or months of no finances and things like that. So it does take some proactivity. It does take some intentionality. It does take some effort, and it will pay off in the long term if you start now, even if you are fully and gainfully employed.
Absolutely. I have to take this from just an ego trip here. Hey, Bill, I can't write on chat with my alt account somehow. Just wanted to thank you again for your advice. It's been super helpful, and I got 2 jobs so far. Thanks from you. 2 jobs. I guess the one that you got first didn't really work out, unfortunately, but that's great news, and thank you for saying so. Ziggurat Gaming. That's the good handle.
Yeah.
That's like a pyramid, a square step pyramid, I think, is Ziggurat. So thanks for letting me know. That's very gracious of you, and I'm glad you're prospering. Carlos says hi. Hi to Carlos. We go way back together, back to the good old days. Any Black Friday special for your courses? Absolutely not, unfortunately. It's one price fits all under all circumstances. That's just how it is. It's already like a tremendous discount compared to I see what other people are offering from their courses. So it's substantially cheaper. So
yep.
There you go. But if I do change my mind, I'll post that and let you know. There we go. Get in the chat. This is an interactive live stream. We've got 27 people here right now. What are you struggling with? What are you wondering about? Anything to do with job search, careers, my impeccable dress sense, anything you want to ask Abby. Abby is we're approaching the end. We may not be broadcasting for the next month or so.
Yes. I'm due to have a baby soon. So I'm going to be taking about a month off, starting, I guess, after our live stream today. So fingers crossed that things go smoothly, and I'll plan on seeing you all in December.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing. I might I'll probably just do a solo stream or something for the next couple of episodes, but yeah, and you're going to be back. The plan is to come back at the very end of the year and then resume the bi-weekly thing. So yeah, but in the meantime, go check out Abby's channel. Abby is a recruiter, and she brings that perspective. So if you're trying to get into the mindset or the mind space of what recruiters are thinking when they receive your applications, how they read it, what they think, how they get their impressions of you in interviews and things like this, When you send a note, to follow up, like how they take it, how they regard it, and you're trying to understand that, go check out Abby's channel, because that's where she's coming from. You could do a lot worse, and she can give you that perspective, definitely. You've got a
Yes.
lot of resources. You've got your coaching stuff that you mentioned. Why don't you just briefly take us through what you have to offer for people who are looking for individualized help?
Sure, sure. And even though I am set to have a baby soon, I'm also self-employed. So I am still going to be available for sessions and things like that. So if you would like to schedule something with me, just send me an email and we can probably find some time that works for both of us to get that all figured out. But I offer a lot of different things that all revolve around the job search process. I have general career coaching that I do, which is really helping people figure out what they want to do next, where they might do that, how they can have just a more strategic approach to their job search as a whole. Then we can have very tangible outcome sessions that are more focused on things like your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, things like that. And then my bread and butter really is my interview coaching, where I work with people through an interview strategy session and mock interviews to help people feel more prepared and confident for whatever interviews they might be experiencing. So I work with people on a individual basis, most commonly with one session, but many times I'll have people schedule between probably 3 to 6 sessions with me, where we can work together through very tangible things like their resume and their cover letter, all the way through the interview prep process and salary negotiation and compensation. And so I just have a success story from this morning where someone had been in the job search process unemployed for 6 months. They were going through the requirements for unemployment, applying to jobs, keeping track of all those things, and then decided to make a change where they decided to reach out to me and just apply some more strategy to their process. And they got 2 offers and are now accepting an offer starting on the 1st of December, and just went shopping for their new wardrobe because it's partially in person. So
Ooh, that's the exciting part.
yes, yes. So it can make a big difference, from going at something alone to having someone in your corner to help support you and keep you accountable and come up with to-dos and things like that, to have a more strategic approach to your work when it comes to job.
Yeah, and the other kind of part of that too, is that like hopefully everybody knows, to get an interview, it's mainly about it's about your application, it's about your qualifications on paper. But once you're in the interview, personal charisma and making a good impression and things like this are extremely important, because the reality is that, for better or worse, that's kind of what you're judged on when you get to the interview. It's not really so much about your qualifications anymore. Your qualifications got you to the interview. Now they want to know what you're like. That's the whole point of talking to you in person. Seeing how you communicate, seeing if you have a rapport with them, stuff like this. So things like personal charisma and making a good first impression are extremely important. And so for me, the obvious real value there is having someone to sort of objectively assess you and say, like, okay, I'm meeting you for the first time, and you're sort of giving me your pitch. You're trying to make a good impression with me, like you're in a job interview. And this is my reaction to it. This is how it's coming across to me. And the reality is that, as human beings, we tend to get along very well with people who are just like us.
Yeah.
So if you're an introvert and you're very technical, you tend to get along with other people who are introverts and very technical. If you're an extrovert, you are very, everything is based on mood. You make your decision based on how it feels and, things like this, as opposed to maybe hard, cold facts. If you're a technical minded introvert, you're interfacing with like an extroverted, touchy feely type person. You may not be attuned to making a good first impression with that type of person. You could come across very cold, very aloof, things, and you're unaware of it. And so being able to get that perspective of how you're coming across and what you should focus on doing is extremely important for when you do things like job interviews. So working with someone else who can give you that kind of feedback is very, very useful. I mean, in a past life, like me and a lot of other executives, you would go and you take a lot of personalized training in that area, and that there was a lot of value there. So this is like a version of that, and it can help a lot of people do well in interviews. So anyway, check out Abby's stuff. She's got a lot of great resources for people that want that.
Yes.
Where did we? There's been some posts here. Where did we?
Yes,
leave?
I think the.
Here, I think.
Yep. Thank you, Amazed. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The same as well.
Abby, I'll let you handle this.
And I think this is a good question for you too. So how should we approach recruiters to access that hidden job market? And pivoting careers from public sector to finance and investments. There are many transferable skills, but no interviews. I would actually say that recruiters are not your way into the hidden job market.
Absolutely.
Recruiters are more HR and process oriented. So they are not going to be as open to getting you around the process. They're going to want you to apply on their website and just follow the normal application process. So the approach with the hidden job market is actually with higher level decision makers who are not in HR. So the CEO, a director, a manager, someone who is a decision maker for hiring based decisions, but isn't actually the hiring process when it comes to like HR and recruiting and things like that. So don't approach recruiters for the hidden job market. You want to identify other people in the organization who have some influence over the hiring process, but are not within and following that process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely correct. It's very unintuitive, isn't it, to a lot of people? Like it does make sense, but once you understand, like internally to an organization, the roles of like hiring manager, recruiter, what these people actually do and how they work. If you know that, then it makes perfect sense. But looking at it from the outside, it's actually unintuitive because one would think that, who are the people that talk about how to get jobs? They're recruiters, but then you look at like the size of the hidden job market. There's a lot of jobs that are, people are hired, but they're not posted, and recruiters are not always involved in the process.
Yeah, the statistic I think is 80% of jobs are in the hidden job market and 20% of jobs are actually posted. So if that statistic is true, that is a huge number of jobs that are not going through recruiters and the formal channels of HR. So reaching out to HR people and talent people will just put you back in the standard pipeline of rules that they want to follow.
Yeah, it's almost like, within like especially large organizations, you have the HR organization and they have their official hiring process. Mm-hmm. That includes posting the job publicly on a website, promoting the job, receiving applications through like, a certain channel, like they all go to a certain email address or something. They go through an ATS, applicant tracking software, that filters it by computer. Then it goes to a recruiter who filters it further. Then you have the job interview stage. Then you have maybe several rounds of that, and then background checks and like all that stuff. It's like the official hiring process, right? And that's the posted job market. That's where recruiters are involved, and recruiters are integral to the posted job market. They're the ones writing up the job posting. They're the ones posting it in public, and they're the ones promoting it and then receiving the applications that it generates. The hidden job market, in a way, is like you're going around that system. You're bypassing it, going directly to the hiring manager. So even if, the company is hiring people, you're sort of ignoring the standard process. You're not going to the website. You're not putting in an application. You're not talking to recruiters. Instead, you're going above that to some decision maker, the person that the recruiters report to, the functional manager.
And you may have to engage with the formal process as a formality, but the initial contact is with someone who is outside of that process and can kind of insert you into it and force you through it rather than leaving it up to chance that the applicant tracking system will identify you as a potential candidate that then gets you seen in front of a real person, which is the recruiter, who then makes some decisions about if you're a good fit or not. You can bypass some of those initial barriers by going to someone else who can kind of insert you into the process.
Yeah, and so what we were talking about a moment ago with, going to a career coach and working on your personal charisma and working on how to make a good impression and things like this, all of that stuff becomes even more important, I would say, because you're trying to sort of go around. You're not going through standard channels. You're just contacting someone in the organization who's not a recruiter and saying, hey, if ever you're hiring, like, check me out. You can't see my fingers pointing at myself, but like, I'm right here. I live close by. I know you got great things. Like, the reason you get hired through that channel is not because you stood in line with 800 other applicants and were put like side by side with 800 people and compared, like on a level playing field, apples to apples, and you stood out above the crowd going up against all these people. That's usually how they select people for, in the posted market. In the hidden market, you're the only one that's really approaching them or approaching that person. Now, if they so happen to have a job at the other end of it that they haven't like publicly posted yet, and that happens a lot because these jobs are in high demand, every time they mention it to their subordinates or whatever, people then come to the manager and say, I got a brother or a friend or a former coworker that'd be perfect for that. Shall I tell them to contact you? They don't need to post it publicly because they're not having problems finding people that would be good for it. So the idea is that you slip in there, and you get hired because you're the one that showed up. And just like volunteering, volunteering is a good thing because it shows, you are genuinely passionate about doing this because they're not paying you, but you're doing it anyway.
Yep.
And that shows your true colors. Like you are the type of person that is into this. So that's kind of also how this stuff works. Like with direct outreach, it's the fact that you reached out to that person, the fact that you maybe presented yourself very well, professionally, charismatically, you have very good communication skills. That's making a case for yourself. So that's why you get selected that way, not because you went in through the front door, but because you went around the process. And not to go on forever about this, but I'll say one more thing. That's why that if you then reach out to a recruiter, chances are the recruiter is just going to direct you back to the official hiring process. They'll say, go apply on the website or something.
Yep. Exactly. Well, and some of the other pieces of this comment, I'm pivoting careers from public sector to finance and investments. So there's, the public sector work does have a lot of transferable skills to the finance and investment side of things. So when it comes to how you might go about the application process is identify which organizations are near you or which ones you want to work for, and then try to connect with the people who are the decision makers. Identify them through Google, through LinkedIn, reach out to them, try to send them a direct email rather than like a message through a platform that's easily ignored. If you can go in person, even better. If you can call them, great. So you just want to do something that helps differentiate you from the rest of the people who are also trying to get that job. And they might not have a job available. But if you can go through the process of saying, I would like to do what you do, or I'd like to work on your team, can I talk with you for 5 to 10 minutes or 15 minutes, or can I buy you a delivery coffee that we can then, sit for 10 minutes on Zoom and chit chat about these roles. Building that relationship and rapport will then keep you at top of mind for them when they do have a position that comes available. The other thing that could be happening as a pivot away from networking, you said that you have a lot of transferable skills, but you're not getting any interviews. There could be something with your application process. It could be your resume is not demonstrating that you have the skills necessary to do the job, so it's not getting triggered in the applicant tracking system. Recruiters are passing over you because you're missing specific keywords or things like that. So you may also want to take a look at, I have a video and I'll put it in my chat, but why you might be applying to jobs but not getting any responses. And a lot of it has to do with the format of your application, specifically your resume. Maybe it's multi-columns rather than just a single page. Maybe it's a generic resume that's not tailored to the job that you're applying to. So there's a lot of other things that could be going on. one of the great things about networking is that you can kind of circumvent those potential obstacles by creating a direct connection with someone who will then vouch for you to get you into the position rather than forcing you to go through the rigmarole of applying.
Yeah, it's based on trust is a huge part of it. Like they have to decide who they want to put in a certain role. And there are a lot of people that profess that they're qualified, but these people are strangers. You really don't know. They could be lying through their teeth. They could be misrepresenting everything on their resume. Like that's the real barrier. So the idea is that someone that reaches out directly to the hiring manager and, you're getting a sampling of who they are, they're genuinely passionate. They have, first of all, they have the initiative to do this. But secondly, you're seeing firsthand how this person and the hiring manager and you have a rapport and you get along as people. You can have a very interesting, productive conversation about, say, finance and investments. You talk about what's your investing philosophy? What's going to, in your opinion, what's going to be the future of investing, and financial practice in the next 5 years or in the future, or what skills do people need in that area? And then you could talk all about that. And they, first of all, like being asked for their opinion. I mean, how often do you get that in your day? Someone says, I really want to know what you think. It's important to me. I want to learn from you. That's a very flattering thing. So, anyway, I'm just realizing by talking through this, I know it's kind of weird reasoning this out on the air, but it's like Abby, like the services you provide to people, you're preparing them for interviews. And a component of that is their personal charisma, making a good impression, not giving off any sort of red flags in terms of their vibe or anything like that. All those skills really do they carry over into this kind of stuff. When we're talking about networking, we're talking about direct outreach. I mean, it's all the same principles when you go and meet somebody. Very, very similar to a job interview. So if you learn those things, you can apply it not just in a job interview, but you could then engage in this type of activity in the hidden job market and reach out to people. And, it applies equally. You will be more successful at that too, knowing this kind of thing.
Yeah. And people love talking about themselves. They love sharing advice. They love sharing their own opinions and getting asked questions and things like that. So if you can essentially interview someone else about what they do, why they do it, what their thoughts and opinions are on the
they'll
changes.
love you. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And kind of appealing to their ego then will help you be top of mind if they want to hire someone for a position that you are qualified for.
Yeah, that's a skill. I mean, I've done that hundreds of times to people, and the goal is, and I've also encountered a lot of people that are I am so jealous of their interpersonal skills to be able to do that. You meet them, you immediately like them, you immediately want to spend more time with them, learning from them. And then if they asked you to join their team or whatever, you would accept in a heartbeat. It's just amazing, skills. And so being able to develop that kind of thing in yourself so that you have that effect on other people when they first meet you. I mean, that opens up so many doors. They have people within their organization are hiring. They're going to need people. They always do need people, Yep. Why not you? I mean, you're the obvious example. You're passionate enough to come here. They like you. They obviously can tell your stuff when you're talking about the subject matter of what you guys do, like in this case, finance and investments. Why wouldn't they consider you for whatever finance and investments role? You know what I mean?
And it feels daunting. If you are more introverted, if you feel like you don't have charisma, if you're not very confident when talking to other people, it can feel like this isn't the right thing for me to do. I'm not going to be good at this. And you can talk yourself out of engaging in networking, but it is a learnable skill. And you learn it by practicing it. There are books that you can read, like Super Communicators by Charles Duhigg is one of my recommendations for that. But it's figuring out how to communicate with other people and how to appeal to them. So it's not even about you. It's about how you interact with them. So I'll put a link to the Super Communicators book in the chat as well. But there are lots of resources out there to learn how to be more conversational, to be more charismatic, and it is a learnable skill. So even if it is something that you are not comfortable with or that you don't think you're good at, it requires some intentionality, it requires some practice and consistency, but you can learn how to be more communicative and to be more charismatic with other people.
Yeah, the obvious book recommendation that I would have is just the same thing. I think it is the most popular business book of all time, right? How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Yep,
I
and
mean,
I'll put
just
that
go
in the
like,
chat as well.
yeah, just go out and get that for like $7 or whatever it is, and just read it. Get it from the library; it costs you nothing. Just read it, and I found the title off-putting for years before I read it. It sounded like it's going to teach you how to be slimy and be some kind of slimy salesperson. It's like, no, it couldn't be further from the truth. It's talking about just how to be the most awesome person, being really good, being really friendly, someone that decent people instantly gravitate to. I mean, that opens up so many doors, because that's the people that's the type of person everybody wants to work with. You know.
Yep.
So imagine if you had the technical skills, that you had the technical chops, so you could do the job. But then on top of it, you presented yourself like that to the decision maker. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
that's what creates these things. So anyway, listen, we could talk forever about this stuff. Learn all you can about it. Abby's got some resources as a coach. I've got some resources in terms of courses that teach you this stuff. And we've got a lot of things on our respective YouTube channels. If you're surprised about like hearing about the hidden job market, how there's way more jobs there than in the posted market, don't take our word for this. Go out and do your own independent research, and and find the stuff out for yourself. And then if you want some help for it, we offer different types of help from different perspectives. And we do this live stream every 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah. We're taking a little break for December, like we mentioned, and we'll be back at the end of December doing the joint thing. But yeah, come back and let us know if you have any questions, and we'll go from there.
Yep.
Beauty Rush says, how do recruiters/employers view resignations without a backup? I had mental health issues and uncharacteristically resigned from my last job. I have stable history, but fixated on the way I exited. So you're talking about not your employer that you're quitting from, but future employers when they ask, like, why did you leave your last job? Is that kind of my understanding of what you're asking?
I think
Would
so.
you say that, Abby?
Yeah, and the next comment from this person says, I won't share the mental health issues, but I'm terrified just resigning means I'll never get a good job again.
Okay, so this is the current employer.
Yes. Well, and I think that if a recruiter or a future employer were to look at this person resigned, then how do they view that? What sorts of judgments do they make? I don't think you need to go into details. A lot of this information that is at the forefront of our mind feels like we are going to be forced to share it. And really, you don't need to. They might ask you why you left your last job, and you can give a very simplistic professional response of that it just wasn't the best fit for you, and so you decided to step away. Leave it at that. You don't have to go into details about mental health issues. You don't have to go into details about why or why not you resigned the way you did and things like that. And if they judge you for it, this is one of those things that comes up a lot in conversations. If they're going to judge you for the way that happened, are they going to be the best fit for you? If they're going to view the fact that you resigned for mental health purposes negatively, then they probably aren't going to be the best fit for you, because they might have some things that could cause mental health issues going down the line that you'll want to resign from anyway. So keep it simple, keep it professional, keep it very surface level. If they really probe, that's kind of a red flag to me, because it's not really any of their business. So just because you resigned from a job, even if it was somewhat uncharacteristic in your words, they don't necessarily need to know all the details and reasoning behind it. And if they really probe, then what are they trying to get at?
I like how you phrase that. You're so much more eloquent and professional than what my gut feeling is to say about this. My version of that is, I agree, first of all, but my version is like, what you do with some other party is none of their business. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? They may ask you, they may want to know that, and so they may ask you. But a lot of times they're not entitled to that information.
No.
You can voluntarily disclose these things if you wish, but you're under absolutely no obligation to tell these people any details of anything you did with someone else. So if you don't want to disclose it because it, just for appearances, you don't have to. I would say that line, like I said earlier, I would just say I was ready to do more,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's, I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to go into, oh, I resigned, and oh, I resigned because of mental health issues,
Right.
and oh, here's all the details of the mental health issues, and what they said and what I said, and you know what I mean? Like, that's none of their damn business. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They want to know everything about you so that they can like do a risk assessment.
Yep.
And I'll go one step further and I'll say that, okay, it might be a red flag that, they're really wanting to question you about this, but it may be understandable that if you've quit a job because of, something was not to your liking, you found it stressful or whatever, it's a he said, she said type thing about exactly what happened, but you ended up leaving because it was not to your liking. Maybe that suggests that there's a higher likelihood that you could do that if they were to hire you for this job.
Yep.
So it's not entirely unreasonable to be wondering about this stuff,
Right.
but it doesn't change anything. You still don't want to disclose it. And nor do you have to. So you can just say, this is why, and that's it,
Yeah. And if you think about it, I look back on all of my employment. I've technically resigned from all of my positions to go into a new position. So there's lots of reasonings why people might quit. I might have resigned because I had a different opportunity lined up. I might have resigned because I had some mental health problems or issues that I wanted to address and overcome before I got into my next set of employment. Like, that's another way to look at it, is every time you quit a job to move into the next one, technically you're resigning from that job.
Yeah. And I mean, it almost feels like judgment by firing squad. It's like they're just looking for like anything that they can twist and say, well, you're a high risk employee,
Yeah.
And so you don't want to play into that. You don't want to give them full and complete information so that they can like use that as an excuse to eliminate you. You know what I mean?
And it doesn't mean that you're lying. It doesn't mean that you're being dishonest. It just means that you're not telling them all of the background information that could help them decide that you're not the best fit for this role.
Yeah. And people do that all the time. I mean, personally, I don't have any like ethical problem with that. It's like if they asked you for your credit card number, you would say, no, sorry, I don't disclose that. That's not something I give out. It's not a problem, but imagine if they asked you for that and then you had to say this to them. So it's like, okay, now you're somebody who's refusing to work with us. You're being argumentative. You're being obstructive. I don't think you're going to work out. You know what I mean? Like, you see how you can just twist that. So the more of those situations that you avoid rather than dive into, the better. So if you can give them a harmless little kind of thing that just, it makes sense and it doesn't raise any further questions and it doesn't paint you in any kind of bad light, I'm all for that approach, just personally.
Yep. I agree.
So we covered this, I believe. Yeah, that was part of it. Okay. And we're rapidly coming up to our hard stop here. So we're just going to try and get through these quickly. Fair enough. Thank you. I've also reached out to HR and talent and applied online, but still no interviews. We'll keep up with it, TPT. As we were saying earlier, there's many different methods of finding a job. And depending on your situation, different methods may work better than others for you, depending on your industry and stuff. So don't just do one thing. Learn as much as you possibly can about, these other ways of getting jobs. I have resources. I'm sure Abby has resources on that. You're welcome. I'm glad you got something out of this. Someone says, I am a May 2025 grad and I'm still seeking a business related job. I have no connections at the firms I'm interested in. Do you have any suggestions? Yes, direct outreach, like apply for jobs the way, the default thing, but direct outreach can really be the tiebreaker. It breaks that catch 22 of I have no experience, so I can't get a job, and I can't get a job because I have no experience.
Yep.
So you're the one that shows up. You don't get it because of your resume. You get it because you showed up, whereas nobody else did. Right.
And a business related job is so huge. Like could be a lot of different things. So don't limit yourself either. Just because you don't have connections at the firms that you're interested in doesn't mean you won't ever have connections at those firms. So maybe you are really just applying to a lot of different organizations to do a lot of different things, and you eventually will build up the connections to work at those organizations that you truly are interested in. If you are a recent grad, maybe you just need some experience under your belt, and it could be at any organization doing a wide variety of different things. So don't limit yourself just to the firms that you're interested in. Consider other options and opportunities and roles that could still help you build the skills to be successful at those firms that you're interested in eventually.
Yes, and business, like direct outreach doesn't need connections.
Right.
You make the connection by reaching out. That's
Exactly.
how that works. I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of these today, unfortunately. I apologize for that. I should have advanced this quicker, but the good news is that we will be back. I'm back on my channel. They can reach you, Abby. Do you ever answer questions or anything like that, or in comments or things like this?
Yep.
Yeah. So go to Abby's channel if you specifically want something from her. If you're not already watching this from Abby's channel, and leave comments and ask questions, and Abby will get back to you, I'm sure. For me, you could do the same. I stream on a regular basis, so I'm back live streaming in 2 days on Wednesday. So you could catch me then. We have to wind this down now. We're going to be gone for over a month till our next joint session. Check out Abby's channel. Check out her coaching services. If you need help, you need someone in your court working with you to help pass interviews, to help get interviews, to deal with negotiation, all that kind of stuff. Check out her channel and her coaching services. Lots of great stuff there.
And if you're watching from my channel, Bill also has some really great resources. Not only does he talk about similar topics that I discuss on my channel, but he also has those courses that could be of a great help to you, especially if you feel like you would like a little bit of a jump start and support with your networking process. If you're more of an introvert and you're not really quite sure how to get started, he's got a lot of great resources for that specifically.
Absolutely. So best of luck to everybody. You guys are awesome. We'll be seeing you soon, and take care.
Yeah. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.